At 4 a.m., a mother went looking for her baby. She expected to find her sleeping. Instead, she found something no parent should ever witness, and what investigators uncovered next changed West Virginia law forever. This is the case of Emila Behringer. A case that would shake a community to its core and force a state to rewrite its laws. Before we go further, we need your help. Cold Case Beacon has a target to hit 1,000 subscribers before January 31st, and we're counting on you to help us reach that goal. If this case matters to you, hit that subscribe button right now. Like this video. Share it with friends who follow true crime. Every single subscription helps us bring forgotten victims back into the light. Let's get there together. Emila Grace Behringer entered the world on Thanksgiving Day, November 26, 2015. She arrived 8 weeks early at a hospital in Baltimore, Maryland, weighing just under 4 pounds. Her mother, Amanda Atkins, had 3 other children at home. 7-year-old Nathaniel. 6-year-old Carly. 2-year-old Cameron. Despite her premature birth and fragile start, Emila proved resilient. Within weeks she was breathing on her own. Within months she was thriving. Those who knew the family described Emila as an easy baby. She smiled constantly. She rarely cried. By 10 months old, she was babbling simple words and pulling herself up to take wobbly first steps around the living room. Her siblings adored her. Nathaniel would read to her. Carly helped during diaper changes. Cameron, barely older than a toddler himself, would sit beside her crib and sing. For Amanda, Emila represented hope. A fresh chapter. A reason to keep pushing forward. But Amanda knew they needed a change. The neighborhood in Baltimore where they lived felt unstable. Crime was rising. Schools were struggling. Amanda wanted something better for her children. Somewhere quieter. Safer. A place where they could start over. In the summer of 2016, she made the decision to move. She packed everything they owned into a rented truck and drove her 4 children across state lines to Ripley, a small town in Jackson County, West Virginia. Population just over 3,000. It was the kind of place where people knew their neighbors. Where kids could play outside. Where Amanda believed her family could finally breathe. The move was exhausting but necessary. Amanda found a modest rental home with enough space for all of them. She enrolled the older kids in school. She set up Emila's crib in a corner of the bedroom. For a few weeks, life felt lighter. Then she met Benjamin Taylor. They crossed paths in late summer. Benjamin was 25 years old, living in the area, and presented himself as stable and dependable. He was polite to Amanda's children. He offered to help with groceries. He played with the kids in the yard. To Amanda, who had been raising 4 children largely on her own, Benjamin seemed like the partner she had been hoping for. Someone who could share the load. Someone who cared. By early September, their relationship moved quickly. On September 7, 2016, Benjamin updated his Facebook status. In a relationship with Amanda Atkins. He posted a photo of the 2 of them kissing. Friends and family commented with congratulations. Everything appeared normal. Everything appeared hopeful. What Amanda did not know was that Benjamin Taylor had a criminal history. Court records showed multiple theft convictions. He had violated probation twice. He had never held steady employment. But those details did not come up in casual conversation, and Amanda, focused on building a stable home for her children, chose to trust what she saw in front of her. Within weeks of making their relationship public, Benjamin moved into Amanda's home in Ripley. He became part of the daily routine. He was there when the kids woke up. He was there when they went to bed. He was there with Emila. October 2, 2016, began like any other Sunday. Amanda spent the day with her children. They ate dinner together. The older kids watched television. Emila sat in her baby swing in the living room, content and calm. Around 9 o'clock that evening, Amanda put Nathaniel, Carly, and Cameron to bed. She checked on Emila, who was still awake but drowsy, and then Amanda herself went to bed. Benjamin stayed in the living room. He said he was not tired yet. He said he would finish up some chores and come to bed later. Sometime after Amanda fell asleep, Benjamin took Emila downstairs to the basement. He told Amanda, in passing, that he was going to do laundry and that he would keep Emila with him so Amanda could rest. Amanda thought nothing of it. The baby was with someone she trusted. Someone she believed loved her children. She closed her eyes and went to sleep. Hours passed. The house was silent. At 4 o'clock in the morning, Amanda woke. She glanced toward Emila's crib. It was empty. She looked at the small bed beside it. Benjamin was not there either. A flicker of concern moved through her, but she told herself there was a simple explanation. Maybe he had fallen asleep on the couch with Emila. Maybe the baby had been fussy and he had taken her downstairs to avoid waking everyone. Amanda walked into the living room. It was dark and empty. No Benjamin. No Emila. She remembered he had mentioned going to the basement to do laundry. She walked toward the basement door, opened it, and started down the stairs. What Amanda Atkins saw at the bottom of those stairs would stay with her for the rest of her life. Benjamin Taylor was there. He was partially undressed. Emila was lying on a pile of blankets and clothes on the floor. She was naked. Her skin was pale. Her face showed streaks that looked wrong. Her body was cold to the touch. Amanda rushed forward and grabbed her daughter. Emila made a faint sound from her throat, barely audible, but she was not moving. Amanda screamed at Benjamin. She demanded to know what happened. She asked him what he had done. Benjamin, still partially undressed, looked at her and said calmly that he was just cleaning the baby. Amanda did not wait for more. She struck Benjamin across the face, scooped Emila into her arms, and ran upstairs. Her hands were shaking as she dialed 911. The call was recorded. In the audio, Amanda's voice is frantic, breaking, pleading. She told the dispatcher her baby was not responding. She told them something terrible had happened. She told them she needed help immediately. In the background, her voice can be heard confronting Benjamin again, demanding answers, begging him to explain why Emila was in that condition. Emergency responders arrived within minutes. Paramedics took Emila from Amanda's arms and rushed her to the ambulance. They worked to stabilize her vital signs, but her condition was critical. She was transported to a nearby hospital where doctors performed every intervention available. Despite their efforts, Emila Behringer could not be saved. She was pronounced dead on the afternoon of October 3, 2016. She was 10 months old. Her body was transferred to the medical examiner's office for a full autopsy. What the forensic pathologist found was devastating. Emila had suffered a skull fracture consistent with blunt force trauma. Her head had been struck against a hard surface with significant force. The injury was determined to be the cause of death. But that was not all. The examination also revealed evidence of sexual trauma. Biological material was collected from Emila's body and sent for DNA analysis. The results would later connect that material directly to Benjamin Taylor. Investigators moved quickly. They obtained a search warrant for the basement where Emila had been found. What they documented was described in official reports as deeply disturbing. Multiple areas showed biological evidence. Streaks were found on the bedding, on the floor, on clothing scattered near where Emila had been lying. A diaper, located nearby, also tested positive for biological material. Everything was photographed, catalogued, and sent to the lab. Police seized the clothing Benjamin had been wearing that night. They swabbed his skin. They took his phone. And what they found on that phone became one of the most damning pieces of evidence in the entire case. Between 2:52 and 3:17 in the morning, while Emila Behringer was dying in that basement, Benjamin Taylor's phone showed active internet searches. He had been browsing adult websites. Explicit content. For 25 minutes, while a 10-month-old child lay injured and unresponsive just feet away from him, Benjamin Taylor did not call for help. He did not wake Amanda. He did not attempt CPR. He searched for pornography. At 4:54 in the morning, 6 minutes before the ambulance arrived, Benjamin's phone log showed a 9-second outgoing call to a number saved as home. Investigators believe this was the moment Amanda discovered what was happening and confronted him. Shortly after that call, Benjamin received a text message from his brother asking if everything was okay. Benjamin's response was brief. He wrote that he was in big trouble. He wrote that he had just taken someone's property. He added a pessimistic remark about his own future. Benjamin Taylor was arrested that same day. He was charged initially with first-degree sexual assault. As the evidence mounted, additional charges followed. First-degree murder. Death of a child by a parent, guardian, or custodian. Sexual abuse by a person in a position of trust. He was taken to the South Central Regional Jail. Bail was set at $2 million. During his initial interviews with investigators, Benjamin claimed he could not remember what had happened. He admitted taking Emila to the basement. He admitted he had been drinking that night. He said he and Amanda had consumed 8 beers and used a small amount of methamphetamine earlier in the evening. But deputies who responded to the scene reported that Benjamin showed no signs of intoxication. His speech was clear. His movements were coordinated. His answers were calm. Benjamin told detectives he sometimes experienced memory blackouts. He said they could last anywhere from 30 minutes to 6 hours. He said he did not remember organizing items in the basement. He did not remember why there were streaks washed down the basement sink. He did not remember what happened to Emila. But the evidence told a different story. The evidence showed a man who was fully aware of what he was doing. A man who made deliberate choices. A man who prioritized his own gratification over the life of a dying child. If you're still watching at this point, drop a comment with "I'm still here." Tell us where you're watching from. Let's see who's truly following this shocking story. In the days following Emila's death, the community of Ripley and surrounding areas reacted with shock and grief. On October 5, 2016, an online petition was created calling for the maximum penalty for Benjamin Taylor. Within 72 hours, it gathered thousands of signatures. The petition was eventually removed from the platform due to the graphic nature of some of the language used, but the sentiment behind it was unmistakable. People were outraged. People wanted justice. On October 7, 2016, a candlelight vigil was held in Pasadena, Maryland, where Emila had been born. Hundreds of people attended. Many had never met Emila or her family, but they came anyway. They held candles. They prayed. They wore shirts printed with Emila's smiling face. Amanda Atkins and her 3 surviving children stood quietly among the crowd, surrounded by support but drowning in grief. The family requested privacy to mourn but expressed gratitude for the overwhelming response from strangers who refused to let Emila be forgotten. Emila Grace Behringer was laid to rest on October 16, 2016. Her funeral service was held at McCully Poliniak Funeral Home in Pasadena. She was buried at Glen Haven Memorial Park in Glen Burnie, Maryland, beneath trees and open sky, in a place where her family could visit and remember the 10 months they had with her. Benjamin Taylor remained in custody as the case moved through the legal system. Prosecutors built their case methodically, compiling forensic evidence, witness statements, phone records, and autopsy findings. The defense prepared as well. And what unfolded during the trial would reveal not just the facts of the case, but the psychology of those who choose to defend the indefensible. In March of 2019, more than 2 years after Emila's death, the trial of Benjamin Taylor began in Jackson County Circuit Court. It lasted 5 days. The courtroom was packed. Media outlets covered every moment. Benjamin Taylor appeared each day wearing a bulletproof vest and a protective helmet, his hands cuffed, flanked by armed deputies. The level of security was a reflection of the public anger surrounding the case. The prosecution laid out their case with precision. They presented the autopsy report detailing Emila's skull fracture and the sexual trauma she endured. They showed the jury photographs of the basement. They played the 911 call, and Amanda's voice filled the courtroom, raw and breaking as she begged for help. They presented the phone records showing Benjamin's internet activity during the time Emila was dying. They showed the DNA evidence collected from Emila's body, from her diaper, from Benjamin's clothing. Every piece pointed in the same direction. But the defense had a strategy. They called a series of character witnesses. People who had known Benjamin Taylor in different phases of his life. People who described him as kind, helpful, gentle. One by one, they took the stand and painted a picture of a man who seemed incapable of violence. His brother's girlfriend testified that Benjamin had been supportive during her pregnancy. She said he helped her family when his brother was ill. She said he was always kind to her young son and never behaved inappropriately. Brianna Garnes, the mother of Benjamin's own child, testified that Benjamin often played with her daughter and was consistently gentle with children. She said that when he drank, he became withdrawn, not aggressive. She ended her testimony with a statement that stunned the courtroom. She said she could not imagine Benjamin being capable of what he was accused of. Benjamin's father took the stand. He said he was proud of his son. He described Benjamin as a gentle child who had never shown concerning behavior. He recounted the morning of October 3, when his wife woke him in a panic and they rushed to the hospital. He said Amanda appeared calm during the drive. He said she did not seem angry or panicked. But the prosecution had evidence that contradicted this. They played the 911 recording again. Amanda's voice was not calm. It was hysterical. It was the sound of a mother watching her child die. Benjamin's mother, Rita Taylor, also testified. She spoke about his childhood with visible emotion, describing him as loving and attentive toward his son, his nephew, and other children in the family. But under cross-examination, she admitted something she could not explain. On the morning of October 3, Benjamin had called her. He told her he loved her. Then he hung up. No explanation. No context. Just those words. The prosecutor asked Rita a direct question. If Benjamin had found a child in a severely injured state and understood the seriousness of the situation, wouldn't his natural reaction have been to call for help immediately? Rita nodded. She agreed that yes, under those circumstances, anyone would try to get medical assistance. The prosecutor followed with another question. Then why did Amanda make the 911 call? Why was help only requested after Amanda discovered what was happening in the basement? Rita Taylor had no answer. The prosecution also introduced recordings made while Benjamin was in custody. In one audio clip, played for the jury, Benjamin's voice could be heard saying he did not know Emila had been severely injured until someone told him. In another, his tone shifted. He said he did not hesitate to take responsibility for the things he admitted doing. The statements were vague, self-serving, and contradictory. When Benjamin Taylor took the stand in his own defense, he offered yet another version of events. He said he had tried to build a bond with Emila. He said he hoped for a future with Amanda, including marriage and starting a life together. He said every time he walked into Emila's room, she would smile at him in a way he claimed to cherish. But under cross-examination, the prosecution dismantled his testimony piece by piece. They asked Benjamin if he had ever made jokes about harming others in a sexual context. He denied it. The prosecution then presented screenshots from his social media accounts. Posts with sexually explicit themes. Images with inappropriate captions. A cover photo featuring a crude and offensive personal statement. The jury saw everything. The courtroom grew quiet. Then came the forensic evidence. Medical examiners had identified biological traces belonging to Emila on the bedding and basement floor. They had found additional traces in her diaper. DNA analysis confirmed that male genetic material was present, and it matched Benjamin Taylor. The clothing he wore that night tested positive. The evidence was overwhelming. Despite all of this, the defense attempted one final maneuver. They called a witness named Barbara, who had lived next door to Amanda in her previous apartment in Baltimore. Barbara testified that on the night of the incident, she had gone to bed early but was woken around 12:30 in the morning by the sound of a child crying through the shared wall. She described it not as ordinary crying, but as a distressed scream for help. She said it caught her attention, though she did not know what was happening at the time. The implication was clear. The defense was suggesting that something had happened earlier in the evening, before Benjamin took Emila to the basement. But the timeline did not support this theory. Barbara lived in Maryland. Amanda and her children had moved to West Virginia months earlier. The testimony was irrelevant. The jury saw through it. After 5 days of testimony, the jury deliberated. They returned with a verdict. Benjamin Taylor was found guilty on all counts. First-degree murder. Death of a child by a parent, guardian, or custodian. Sexual abuse by a person in a position of trust. The courtroom erupted in quiet relief. Amanda Atkins, surrounded by family, finally allowed herself to cry. The sentencing hearing followed. The jury recommended life in prison without the possibility of parole. Judge Christopher Tatterson read the verdict aloud. For the murder of Emila Behringer, Benjamin Taylor was sentenced to life without parole. For the death of a child by abuse, he received an additional life sentence. For sexual abuse by a guardian, he received 40 years. For violating his position of trust, he received 10 to 20 years. All sentences were ordered to run consecutively. He was also fined $5,000. For the first time since the trial began, Benjamin Taylor showed emotion. Throughout the proceedings, he had remained cold, detached, barely reacting even when graphic images of Emila's injuries were shown to the jury. But when the judge read his sentence, Benjamin broke down. He cried openly in the courtroom. Not for Emila. Not for Amanda. Not for the family he destroyed. He cried for himself. Emila's family sat quietly in the gallery. In their eyes was not relief, but exhaustion. Justice had been served, but it could not bring Emila back. It could not undo the horror of that night. It could not erase the image Amanda carried of finding her daughter dying in that basement. Benjamin Taylor's defense attorney announced plans to appeal, arguing that certain evidence had not been fully considered and that his client had not received a fair trial. The appeal was denied. Benjamin Taylor remains incarcerated to this day. He will never walk free. But Emila's story did not end in that courtroom. In April of 2017, just months after her death and while the investigation was still ongoing, West Virginia Governor Jim Justice signed a new piece of legislation into law. It was called Emila's Law. Named in memory of Emila Grace Behringer, the law increased penalties for acts of violence against children that result in death. It strengthened legal accountability. It established a stricter sentencing framework. It ensured that what happened to Emila would carry the full weight of the justice system for anyone who followed in Benjamin Taylor's footsteps. Emila's Law stands as a reminder. Not just of what was lost, but of what must be protected. It is a testament to a child who lived only 10 months but whose name now carries the force of legislation. Whose memory demands that we do better. This case forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. How do we protect the most vulnerable among us? How do we recognize warning signs before it is too late? How do we ensure that trust, once given, is never weaponized? Amanda Atkins trusted Benjamin Taylor. She let him into her home. She let him near her children. She believed he was building a future with her family. And in a single night, that trust became the instrument of unimaginable tragedy. Benjamin Taylor had a criminal history. Multiple theft convictions. Probation violations. No steady employment. But those details were not visible on the surface. He appeared kind. He appeared helpful. He appeared safe. And that is the most chilling part of this case. Monsters do not always look like monsters. They look like boyfriends. Like neighbors. Like people we invite into our lives because we are tired, or hopeful, or desperate for stability. Emila Behringer was born 8 weeks early on Thanksgiving Day. She fought to survive from her very first breath. She smiled at everyone. She took her first steps. She said her first words. She was loved fiercely by her mother and her siblings. And she was failed by the one person who should have protected her. Her story is not just a cautionary tale. It is a call to vigilance. If you know a single parent, check in on them. If you see something wrong, say something. If someone new enters your life or the life of someone you love, pay attention. Trust your instincts. And never, ever assume that because someone seems kind, they are safe. Emila's name is now written into law. Her face is remembered in vigils and memorials. Her grave in Glen Haven Memorial Park is visited by family who will never stop missing her. But she should still be here. She should be 8 years old now. She should be in 3rd grade. She should be laughing with her siblings and helping her mother in the kitchen and learning to ride a bike. Instead, she is gone. And all that remains is the echo of what could have been, and the knowledge that her death was entirely preventable. If this case has moved you, if it has made you think, if it has reminded you of the importance of protecting children, then do something with that feeling. Subscribe to Cold Case Beacon. We are committed to bringing light to forgotten victims and unsolved cases that deserve to be remembered. Comment below and tell us what you think. Share this video with others who need to hear Emila's story. Every subscription, every share, every comment helps us continue this work. Together, we can make sure that victims like Emila are never forgotten. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. And stay with us as we continue to shine a light on the cases that need it most. This is Cold Case Beacon. And we will not let their stories fade.